And it's week number 5, day 17, our Eagles camp recap with John McMullen. Football 24/7 with John McMullen comes to a screeching halt as this marks the final day of the 2021 Philadelphia Eagles preseason training camp, Johnny Mac. And as you said in the pre-show, they literally did save the 2 hottest days for last.
Yeah, they did. Got through it. You got a little tree there, so the players, the Jets have an interesting facility, very nice facility, by the way, but they got a big tree in the middle of one of the practice fields, and yeah, the shade was nice for the players this week.
As we get into our final training camp report, Jalen Hurts saves the best for last. The final 53, the roster's already set. Did the Eagles go to 4-0 with the joint practice? We'll find out. And of course, the best for last, John McMullen's game ball. Can you name the 17 game ball winners from the 2021 training camp? Plus, Darius Slay has entered the building. And on that introduction, John, where should we begin with your report tonight?
Undefeated. Come on, the 72 Miami Dolphins finally have company. Undefeated. When does the banner go up? When does the banner 4-0 in joint practices?
I think you put that out yesterday, John, and that's starting to catch some life in the Philadelphia market
Yeah, I
for
just put it
sure.
out on Twitter. Yeah, people, some people don't get the sarcasm. They played very well in joint practices. So, kind of, I've been saying it for a while. How do you want to spin this? Because obviously, the preseason games themselves have not been good. And, Friday still is ahead of us. And Nick Sirianni, as I expected him to, begged off. Saying who was going to play. Ultimately, I don't think Jalen Hurts is going to play. I don't think many of the veteran starters are going to play or should play. The Fletcher Coxes of the world, the Brandon Grahams, Lane Johnson, etc., Brandon Brooks, they shouldn't play. Um, Young quarterback, I would have him out there for at least a little bit, especially after what happened in week 2 and the fact that, look, it's nobody's fault, but he missed the game that he was supposed to play, at least a couple series in. So, in theory, if that happens, I got to get him some work in week 3. But the Eagles are certainly trending in the direction of not believing in that. And we'll see how it shakes out. September 12th in Atlanta. I do know if you look around the league, I mean, Patrick Mahomes has played, Tom Brady has even played some preseason snaps. There's some, Aaron Rodgers has not. But we're talking about superstar quarterbacks. Why is even Jalen Hurts in that purview? I don't know. I think he needs reps. And it's interesting because the Eagles seem to know that with the young receivers, for instance, who played a half against New England, because they need the work. You have a rookie, you have 2 second-year players. They're right. They need the work. And you understand the quarterback is the most important position. But I got to tell you, Krause, you can't legislate injuries. I talk about it all the time. 23-year-old. Can't worry about that kind of stuff. You got to get them prepared. I don't agree with the way the Eagles have handled Jalen Hurts. And to be honest, I think they're doing him a disservice. I really do.
Do you think Jalen Hurts agrees with the way the Eagles are handling his process in camp this
I
year?
don't. I don't. Because he has told me flat out he believes his game is more suited. We talk about plays being blown dead. We talk about the safety in practice. And a lot of times he believes that plays that are whistle dead, that he could have extended and made something out of them. Well, you only know that in a live environment. And a lot of, earlier in camp when everybody was reporting how he was struggling, I think, he got a little bit frustrated. In fact, I know it because he said it. He got a little frustrated. Um, so I don't think he likes that. I do think he wants to go out there and play. In fact, I know he wants to go out there and play, but he's also a good soldier, and he's going to frame it as he's going to do what the coaching staff tells him, and that's the kind of guy he is. But I don't think the Eagles are going about the best way to prepare him for the season.
On our report yesterday, Johnny Mac, you mentioned that Nick Sirianni, head coach Nick Sirianni, was going to talk today. Did he speak with the media? Was he asked specifically whether or not Jalen Hurts was going to be the starting quarterback on September 12th?
Yes, he did. And yes, he did. He did speak and he was asked that question. And as expected, as I said yesterday on the show, I didn't expect him to answer the question. He didn't. He kind of begged off and said, we still got to get through today. We got to get through a walkthrough tomorrow, and then they'll make a decision. And that's what he says every week. And I get it. But I think if he comes out and says Jalen Hurts isn't going to play, then he knows he's going to get the follow-up questions and some of the things I just said. And it's easy to kind of fend them off by saying, we're still thinking about it. And,
Well, what are they
maybe
thinking?
they come to
What
the
are they thinking
conclusion.
about? They're not. I
Well,
mean,
maybe they come to the conclusion because as I was told before week 2 that Jalen was going to play about 2 series. Now, the hope is, in the best case scenario, those 2 series are long drives and maybe 10 play drives, and you get 20, maybe even more than that, snaps in if you're successful. That's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario you saw, he was ill before the game, wasn't allowed to play at all, so he got no reps. Um, so that was the original plan, and from that weren't going to play him in week 3. That's what I was told before the Patriots game. Now, maybe it changed, and the fact that they didn't get him the work that they expected to get him in week 2, maybe they think he needs that in week 3. So I'm not going to say 100% he's not playing, but it sure sounds like he's not playing. It sure sounds like they're not coming off their original plan, and they're going to regard these 2 days of joint practices as essentially the game. And look, they're better than practices against yourself, but they're not a game and they're not live. And you still have some of the same issues you have when you're practicing in a normal setting, and the fact that nobody's allowed to hit the quarterback. Um, so it's been an organizational decision from the start, and it's one you and I have talked about quite a bit. And I get the thought process. This is sort of a thing in sports as a whole, not just the NFL. We talk about load management and limiting practice time, limiting even game time in the NBA or things like that. It's come to football as well, and the practices have been scaled back, and we are where we are. And it's interesting to me, though, that in essence, they put Jalen Hurts in the same category as the veteran players. They put him in the same category as the Fletcher Coxes, the Brandon Grahams, etc. They have not put Devontae Smith, Jalen Reagor, Quez Watkins in that category. So it's interesting, and it's obviously because of the position. But I think there is a little bit of a double standard there, and I'm not sure they should be going down that road.
last thought on head coach Nick Sirianni, and then we'll get into a lot of good activity today at practice. I want to make sure that we share all of that with all of our viewers across the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and make sure you stay with us. Big news, big announcement, lots of good stuff, including Eagles season tickets. We're giving away a pair of tickets for every game on the season. Plus, we have a pair of tickets, Johnny, for every game on the schedule. So a lot of good stuff. JAKIB Media is prepared as we bring everybody into the 2021 season. Last thought on head coach Nick Sirianni is what you've watched him do in these 17, what are we, in these 17 days. Is this really Nick Sirianni, or is this Nick Sirianni facilitating what collectively Howie and the entire organization wants to happen?
Yeah. I mean, as I say, an organizational decision, the way they set up practice and things of that nature, that is certainly, he's under some limitations there. There's no question about it. But, that's not rare. Certainly, it's not rare for rookie head coaches in this league. Everybody out there listening, not everybody, but most have bosses, and sometimes you got to listen to the boss, and you got to accomplish your goal or accomplish your task the best way you can, even if you think there's a better way than your boss thinks. So I've said it pretty consistently. I think if it were up to Nick Sirianni, the Eagles would be practicing more. I think the players would be playing more in the preseason. But I do think he's under some limitations from that perspective.
If it was up to Nick Sirianni, would he have already named Jalen as the starter?
No, that one I don't think is anything other than Nick Sirianni. And the same thing, by the way, with Jordan Mailata. He got as close as he has to naming Jordan Mailata the starter today, but still wouldn't do it. I just think that has more to do with his competition mindset and the mindset that young players haven't proven it, and he doesn't want to hand things to them. Again, doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense, because you can't treat the quarterback like he's Tom Brady and not say he's the starting quarterback. It doesn't make sense. And I think Joe Banner actually tweeted that today. You lose credibility in the locker room. Now, I think Joe might be overstating it a little bit, because the players in the locker room know, for whatever reason, he's doing it for the public. And I do think he loses a little bit of credibility when he does things like that. But ultimately, I don't think it's a big thing. I don't think it's going to haunt him or anything of that nature. I mean, we've stopped asking if Jalen Hurts is a starter because we all know he's the starter. I mean, so it's become sort of an inertia. We know he's the starter, so why waste time asking the question?
Eagles camp recap with John McMullen. It is week 5, day 17, the final training camp report. Don't forget, at the very end of this report, John McMullen's final game ball. Can you name all 17, or will you be able to name all 17?
I can't name all 17, so if you can do that, Godspeed to you.
Johnny Mac, we have them all down,
and it all flows together.
And we have them all down, and I've got perhaps I have a Devontae Smith jersey to give
there
away
we go.
For the
there
individual that can do it. So stay tuned.
I'm glad I have a record keeper, because all these days kind of bleed together. But I do, before we go on, I do want to what Nick. I want to get the exact quote. And he was talking more about. He was talking about Jordan Mailata and Andre Dillard, but he said, I mean, you've seen who has been working with the ones at every position. The guys have been working with the ones. I mean, that's the guys we view as starters at this point. So that's as far as he's gone. And he essentially said, "Look, they're working with the ones. That's who we view as the starters." Um, which again he should. Um, and you know, uh, the very next question he says, "But we haven't made the decision." And again, that's more of Andre and Jordan Mailata, but it also speaks to Jalen Hurts, who again 17. So now it's official. We are through every single training camp practice, and only one person took a first team rep at the quarterback position. So he's the starter.
Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, Miles Sanders, Kenny Gainwell, all good days today in this practice against the Jets.
Yeah, I think the offense was better today than yesterday. I don't think the defense was as good, but it's hard. But they completely dominated yesterday. But overall, yeah, I mean, offense won both days against the Jets defense. Eagles defense won both days against the Jets offense. So 4-0, put up the banner. Put
Well,
up the banner.
if Jalen's not going to play on Friday, and the offense had a better day today than they did yesterday, then as we began the show, Jalen Hurts saves the best for last. How good was Jalen Hurts at practice today?
Yeah, it was pretty good. I think certainly if you look at it as a whole, he's gotten better and better, and that's been their mantra: get 1% better every day. He certainly progressed from where he was at the beginning of camp. I think I look at this skill position group as a whole. I really do. I think it's going to be a theme. You got a bunch of playmakers who are going to make a bunch of mistakes. So I think you're going to see some really, really high moments and you're going to see some really, really low moments. I really do. Because it's not only the quarterback, it's the receivers who are all young. If you think about Miles Sanders, who's maybe of besides the tight ends, we're going to put them aside because they're veteran guys. But um, Miles would be the most experienced of that group, and even him, he's sort of like a home run hitter. Miles might go 70. He might fumble the football. He might drop a pass. I think that's going to be the theme of this playmaking group outside the tight ends. It's going to be highs and lows. It's going to be like an EKG.
Johnny Mac, I was watching or listening rather to you on Birds 365 this morning with Jody Mack and Jeff Kerr. Jody Mack posed a question about the biggest disappointment of camp. It's an offensive receiver. I'll let you talk about it. Fascinating that at one point Travis Fulgham was, for that short period of time in 2020, 4 or 5 week period, in the top five around the NFL, and now finds himself perhaps, is he making the team, or where does he stand with this football team?
Yeah, I mean it's going to be interesting how they look at this roster because we have this roster pool every year, and this is the most difficult uh, year I've ever had trying to figure out where this coaching staff is going to go. And the back end at wide receiver is one of those issues because the three guys are gonna be there, and that's Devontae Smith, Jalen Rager, and Quez Watkins, who's made this football team. And then you have the back end receivers with Greg Ward and Travis Fulgham and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, and throw John Hightower in there. Look, I could see them all making the team. I could see them all being cut. That's how close it is. It depends what do they want. I would think they want to keep Greg Ward, who's the veteran, as astonishing as that sounds, in that wide receiver room. And then you start talking about the fifth and sixth receivers. What I said, I don't even know if you want to keep six because I don't think this group is good enough to keep six. But either way, you talk about 5 and 6. Those guys got to help on special teams. That's where they got to make their hay. And none of them, Travis, JJ, John Hightower, are really good special teams players. So it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. And they have deeper positions. Do you want to keep an extra cornerback? Do you want to keep an extra offensive lineman, an extra defensive lineman, rather than a sixth receiver who's, probably not that good? Let's be honest. So it's going to be tough to get this thing down to 53.
Eagles camp recap with John McMullen. Week 5, day 17, we'll flip to the other side of the football. We'll talk a little bit of defense. By the way, great article from yours truly, John McMullen, I guess up on Sports Illustrated, right, John? The Sam linebacker, a really good read, really good read. Was that a one-on-one conversation that you had with Gannon? But a great article.
No, that was just from, I asked Jonathan the question at the press conference. I did get a little one-off time with JG, as he likes to be called, a few days ago. Really smart guy, really sharp guy. I think Eagles fans are going to be very excited about him as being their defensive coordinator. Much like Nick Sirianni, just unbelievable energy, high energy from day to day. And, you talk to people around the league and everybody's talking about him as a future head coach. So I don't know how long he's going to be here because he's sort of like a shooting star in this profession. But you're going to see some different things. And one of the things you're going to see is that Sam linebacker position. And really, it's sort of they're using an edge rusher at that particular position. So you're going to see a little bit more blitzing. If you look at where Gannon learned, it was under Mike Zimmer in Minnesota. What they do is those A-gap blitzes. You saw a little of that from Jannard Avery already in the preseason. A lot of overload blitzes where they overload one side and they bring that Sam linebacker. I think you're going to see that when he gets to a regular season every once in a while. But the goal, and this is probably the part that fans are not going to like because they didn't like Jim Schwartz at the end. The goal, as it is with every defensive coordinator, the goal is to get home with 4 in the pass rush. And in theory, the Eagles have a good enough defensive line to where they won't need to blitz a lot. That's the hope anyway.
Darius Slay had a fantastic day today. He's had a great camp. Now, since the very beginning, John, you've talked many times about Darius Slay, and I kind of feel as though Darius Slay. I started the report tonight. Darius Slay has entered the building. I kind of feel like he's going to live up to the expectations that came with the signing a year ago.
Yeah, I'll say this. I'm gonna say Darius Slay is one of the best players on the Eagles, and I'm gonna disagree with you, and I'll tell you why. I don't think fans realize, at least a lot of the fans realize, there's no such thing as a lockdown corner in the modern NFL. There's just too much going against cornerbacks. They're handcuffed to such a degree. It doesn't matter who you think. It could be Jalen Ramsey. It could be Stephon Gilmore, who's a former Defensive Player of the Year. It could be Jair Alexander, who I think is the best press coverage corner in the NFL from Green Bay. Any of them. You can go on the Game Pass. You can look at their games. If you want to, you can show cut-ups of them getting beat, because this is an offensive league that everything is slanted towards the offense. And when you have a top-tier offense and Patrick Mahomes is slinging it, or Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers, or you're going to get beaten. And Jonathan Gannon, we just talked about him. He said that when he was talking about Zach McPherson this week. You're going to get beaten in this league. In many ways, the top trait you can have at the cornerback position is just that short memory to
That's
be
why I
able to
like
say,
Jalen. That's why I love Jalen Mills so much. He may
yeah,
have got he may have got torched, but he lined right back up the next play.
yeah. And Darius has got that same mentality, but he's got more skill. He's a top 10 cornerback in the NFL, top 10 corner. I don't think people in Philadelphia realize that. Um, will they? I don't know because you need interceptions. He obviously the Eagles as a whole didn't turn over the football a lot. They hope to do it more under Jonathan Gannon. But people are not going to be attacking Darius Slay. They're going to be attacking Steve Nelson and Bonte Maddox when they start game planning. People around the league know how good Darius Slay is.
They attacked him last year.
I don't think that I don't think they did. I don't think they did. Again, if you look at the context of corners in this league, he didn't give up a lot. Everybody gets beaten in this league. Everybody. Jalen Ramsey, I would say, is regarded by most people as the best cornerback in football. He got ran out of Jacksonville at the end because he wasn't playing up to his reputation. Everybody gets beat. Stephon Gilmore, as I said, defensive player of the year, started getting beat a little bit last year. People want him out of town in New England. They wanted him traded. It's part of the job because they're expecting Deion Sanders. They're expecting, you go way back, they're expecting bump and run, Willie Brown. They're expecting lockdown corners. They don't exist. They can't exist. You can't put your hands on the receivers. You can't get physical with receivers. You're up against it. In a lot of ways, people say, and I'm writing about this probably for Philly Boys next week. Uh, People always say quarterback is the most difficult position to play in football. I don't think it is. It's the most important position, the most important by far. But when you get somebody with the talent of Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady, those guys are lights out. You don't have comparable corners because corners can't be that good. They're not allowed. That's why it's the most difficult position to play.
Great stuff from John McMullen, Football 24/7 across the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Our Eagles camp recap. It is week 5, day 17. We'll get to the game ball in just a moment. One last thought on the front forward on the defensive side of the football, Johnny Mack, as the training camp comes to a halt. And you've talked so much about how good the defense has looked against their own personnel, against the Patriots, against the Jets. Who is number one, or who looked the best to you out of them all? Out of that front four. I know you spent a lot of time praising Josh Sweat in the very beginning when we go back to week 1, day 2, day 3. All of those early camps, you were talking about how strong Josh Sweat was. Capsulize it for me now that we're at the end.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm doing my training camp awards, which I do every year. I used to do them for ESPN South Jersey. Now I do them for Sports Illustrated. Um, yeah, it was Josh Sweat probably for the first 8, 9, 10 days of camp. And, he'd probably be number 2. And I'm going number 1, Javon Hargrave. He closed strong. And he missed a couple days with an ankle. But, man, when he's been out there, he's been so dominant. I just think he's the most improved player I saw. And, yeah, they're loaded up front, man. Javon Hargrave, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Josh Sweat, they are loaded up front.
Great stuff from John McMullen. Last thought before the game ball. You started to hint about an answer to this question when we were talking about Jalen Hurts. I wanted to end this segment up tonight with locker room leaders. Who are the three leaders on defense? Who are the three leaders on offense that are controlling everything? They're controlling the locker room, they're controlling motivation, they're controlling messaging. Who are they, John?
Well, I think offensively, it starts and it always has to start with the quarterback. And I think, that's always been the strength of Jalen Hurts. I've said it from pretty much day one. He, people naturally gravitate towards him. So his teammates do find him. He doesn't struggle against that. In a lot of ways, Carson Wentz would swim upstream when it came to that because he was a little bit more introverted. I think even though uh, Jalen Hurts doesn't seem like at a press conference that outspoken or that hyped up, he's always got the steady pulse, as I always like to call it. He behind the scenes, he tries to engage everybody. And when I say engage everybody, I don't mean the receivers and the running backs and the skill position. I mean guys he doesn't deal with on the defensive side of the football. I mean special teams players. He tries to connect with everyone. So I think that's a positive. And then I took Miles Sanders, Nick Sirianni let him sort of break down practice yesterday. He's trying to put that sort of mantle on him. And obviously, Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson, those guys, they walk on water to people in as well they should to people in that franchise. On the defensive side, you have the obvious ones. You have Brandon Graham, who's so ebullient, the most energetic player I've ever known on a day-to-day basis. Natural leader, Fletcher Cox, a little bit more understated, but does it on the field. Everybody's in all. He's sort of like the Lane Johnson of the defensive side of the ball. Everybody's in awe of him from his physical perspective and the way he plays. And then I think sort of the underrated guy is Anthony Harris, another guy who has sort of broken down defensive huddles at times. And he's going to be the guy communicating on the back end to get everybody on the same page in that back seven. So those would be who I would point you toward.
Hot, feisty day. As week 5, day 17 comes to a close, the Eagles Camp recap with John McMullen here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. John, the final game ball given today and given by you goes to whom?
I'm going to go offense, and I'm going to go a rookie. I'm going to go Kenny Gainwell. He's
I
really
love
been,
it.
he's really been coming on the last number of practices in camp. It's clear the Eagles are trying to get him involved, and he's been getting these extra reps with the first team at times, usually in third down passing situations. And he's been making the most of them. He's been doing a good job, so I'm going to give it to Kenny Gainwell.
I love it, John McMullen. Quickly, just so everybody is in the know, walk through tomorrow, game on Friday. Then what? What happens on the weekend? Because cut down to the big cut down is Tuesday to go from 80 to 53. But what's happening post game? What's happening after the game on Friday?
Yeah, I mean, after the game on Friday, coaches are meet. That's when you start talking about the big cut from 80 to 53. Saturday, players' day off. Uh, there's a lot of time now. Typically, you don't have this much time, not only between the final game and the cut down, but also um, from the final cut to the first game of the regular season. You have 16 days. So we don't have the schedule next week for when they're going to start practicing. They definitely have Saturday off. I assume they're going to get back on the practice field quickly. And that means, though, remember, they're not going to bring, I would find it very hard. They're going to bring 80 players back to practice, say on Sunday or Monday, and then start, cutting them. So either They're going to cut players a little bit more quickly, and they're not going to wait till Tuesday, or they're probably going to give the players a number of days off.
All right, Eagles camp recap with John McMullen, week 5, day 17. A lot of content and a lot of information over the last 17 days from NFL insider John McMullen. And Kenny Gainwell gets the game ball today. John McMullen, get a big 32-ounce cold glass of water, will you, or a bottle of water. That was a great work by you on a hot, feisty day up in New York, and a great job by you all through preseason camp. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. One programming reminder, the live postgame show with Derek Gunn, Mark Farzetta, Devin Caney, Lane Johnson, and yours truly, John McMullen, on 6abc.com and right here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Subscribe, like, and share. Johnny Mac, great stuff, my friend. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in tonight. See you next time. If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.